This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Summer's almost out and fall's calling. Luckily, Nordstrom has everything you need for the season ahead, all under $100. Discover new arrivals from your favorite brands like Mango, Princess Polly, Wave, Free People, BDG, and more. Whether you're planning a last-minute getaway, heading back to class, or refreshing your office looks, you'll find the latest trends and beauty must-haves without breaking your budget. It's easy, too, with free shipping, free returns, and in-store order pickup. Shop today, in stores, and at Nordstrom.com.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game of me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Kieran, it's a Monday morning, but that 2-week break seems to have refreshed you. You were more chipper than you were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, it's been a busy 2 weeks. There is no downtime, as we both know, as far as the world of football finance is concerned. But yeah, smile on my face. It's sunny outside. There's two flies on the window, which I don't particularly. I'm not a fly fan, but other than that, all is good.
I wasn't expecting the pod to start that way, Kieran. I have to say, I don't think many of us are fly fans.
True.
I'm sure there is a purpose for them in God's plan, but I probably could tell you a story here that Perry Groves told me about. I won't tell you the player concerned. I think you'd probably guess, where he was sharing a room with another player, and there was two flies on the window, and the other player said, "I'll bet you 20 quid that the fly on the left leaves the window first," and this went on for quite some time. And eventually he upped it to 100 quid, and Perry Groves said, "I knew I was going to win because the fly on the right was the fly on the left was a current." It's clearly splattered on the window in this cheap hotel they're in, basically.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know. Flies and wasps. Never mind. Had a 2-week break here, and then we're going straight into the old losing the BAFTA routine.
Yes.
It's questions day, Kieran. It is good to be back. I've missed your chuckle. I really have. The world's a better place when you're chuckling in it. It is questions day. We've got some good questions, a couple of old favourites, which I'm happy to ask again. But I think because we've been off for a substantial period of time, I think if we do a little catch-up with the two stories that were causing us most concern 2 weeks ago, it seems slightly better news for Sheffield Wednesday in terms of embargoes being lifted, and a very effective protest by their fans at the start of the Leicester game yesterday.
Yes, Sheffield Wednesday were under both an embargo and a transfer fee restriction. One of those has now been lifted. It was lifted on Friday, which was too late to do anything. Sheffield Wednesday can now, they can sign players, pay them up to £7,000 a week, which, given that the average salary in the Championship is 12 to 14, does make life more complicated for them. Fair play to the Wednesday fans, for they are getting themselves organised. And we've always suggested that if fans want to raise their concerns, non-violent direct action is the route which is the best way to go down. I think there is now an attempt to have a boycott of non-match day items, in the sense of don't buy the merchandise and so on, to try to put the pressure on to Chansiri. The club is up for sale. The EFL have tried to nudge him in the right direction, but their position is very limited, in the sense that unlike Dai Yonga, he's not actually broken any rules. Being intransigent, being stubborn, is in itself is not actually an offence. But that they have put out a public announcement. They are encouraging him to engage. The problem is that he's not seeing sense. The asking price, I now believe, is down to somewhere near to £100 million. I'm not necessarily sure that includes Hillsborough. So therefore, what exactly are you getting for your £100 million? Yeah, that seems very strange. The squad, to use footballing parlance, is threadbare because players have left due to breach of contract and so on. When we did our live show at Rotherham, I was asked a direct question by a Wednesday fan, what did I think the club was worth? And I said, well, at the time I felt somewhere in the region of 40 to 45 million was a reasonable price. Since then, I think that price has come down because they have lost their best players. They've not been replaced. So therefore, anybody who acquires Sheffield Wednesday will have to invest more in the squad. So I think you could probably knock the thick end of 10 million off. Smith's left, Windass has left, they've sold another player to Rangers and so on. And they've probably not extracted full market value for them. So it's not a good situation, but they will have now received the first instalments in terms of the 25-26 TV deal from the EFL. So that's going to help the budget a little bit, but it is very much a living by day. I understand that for the Leicester match, which took place on Sunday, and again, I think this is sort of one of the reasons why we're proud to be football fans. The Leicester fans had banners in support of Sheffield Wednesday because Leicester have been in administration before, and I think regardless of whether you support the club or not, regardless of whether you're rivals or not, we do realise that we've got more in common as fans than what separates it. What separates us is sort of the individual tribal elements of supporting Club X instead of Club Y. But nobody wants Sheffield Wednesday to be in that situation. Even Sheffield United fans, they enjoy seeing their rivals squirm. But as one of them said to me, we could have somebody to take the mickey out of, and you can't do that if there's no club. Yeah. And also, as you say, some of my best mates are Wednesday fans. Yeah. We just happen to support a different club. Yeah. And so I think football fans get it. Unfortunately, Dejan Chansiri doesn't get it. He is convinced that he's entitled to get his money out that he's put in. Well, that business doesn't work like that, Dejan. I don't want to disappoint you there. So it's very much in his court. Are there interested parties? The simple answer is yes. Are they going to pay over the odds? No. So it's his position as the selling party to agree a reasonable price, and then we can move on. So I'm 99.99% confident that we've got a Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, a couple of points, Kieran, before we take a trip to the coast that neither of us particularly wants to take in these circumstances. BBC had a brilliant, I presume it was a BBC South Yorkshire or BBC Yorkshire thing, but it was a really good 7-minute film on the situation at Sheffield Wednesday, which included some footage of when he was taking over the club back in the day, but with a warning note from the commentator back then, the pundit, the journalist back then, saying he's a man who's known for wanting to make his own decisions, which may be a problem because football's very different from the industry it comes from. But is there a reason for the lifting of this embargo? Has he paid some money that he was meant to pay? Or?
Yes. Some of the outstanding financial issues have been resolved. So that is why that part of the overall level of restrictions has been taken away by the EFL. They've still got, I think it's till June 27. It's a long time away. I might be wrong on that date, but there's still an outstanding significant amount due to the fact that he's made promises to the EFL which he's not maintained himself, because they have been concerned about the state of Sheffield Wednesday for some time. As far as the fans in the North Stand are concerned, they bought season tickets in good faith. Are they entitled to refunds? The simple answer is that you need to look at the terms and conditions. And I've had contact with various Wednesday fans. They said, we're torn. I'm a Wednesday fan. I want to see my team. I don't want to get involved in any of this. But also want to go and sit with my mates like I have done for the last 20 or 30 years, and just being shifted to somewhere else where there's a random seat isn't giving me the same experience. So am I entitled to a refund? The simple answer is we don't know, but it's a personal decision to make, and from an individual fan's point of view, having to incur legal costs to try to get money back from the club isn't a good use of their money. And again, it's sort of the frustration from a Wednesday fan's point of view. Again, another fan said to me, "Okay, I'm being moved, but they've not told. We've got our first home game coming up. They've not told me where I'm moving to." So it's a lack of communication. It's a lack of professionalism. I believe that for the Leicester game, in order to save costs, again, it's not a huge distance. Normally, you go down and spend the night in a hotel together the night before, but that was cancelled, and instead, the players transferred on a coach. I think some players went down and stayed the night in a hotel. They just want to have that sort of that muscle memory start of the season and so on. And it was evident because I watched I appreciate you were at Wembley, I believe.
Oh, so I was. Yes, I was going to come on to that. Yeah, I thought just in case you'd forgotten. Just in case, yeah. I watched the Wednesday game, and it was quite noticeable that the players were tiring towards the last 15 to 20 minutes. Why is that? Well, because they've not played pre-season friendlies because of the uncertainty surrounding the club. So it does have a negative impact, and your heart goes out to the Wednesday fans. They just don't want any of this nonsense. Football is all about escapism. Yeah, not giving you additional trauma. One of the people featured in this BBC film was an elderly chap who's been going for 78 years, whose seat is in the North Stand, and he doesn't know what to do. And just a reminder, Kieran, for those of our listeners who may not know the ins and outs, the North Stand has been closed by Sheffield Council for health and safety reasons, isn't it? It's currently not fit for purpose, I believe.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And finally on this, there's a good news, bad news scenario for Wednesday fans, is that even this week, John Textor is expressing his interest in taking over at Sheffield Wednesday when circumstances are right. I don't know what those circumstances are, but good luck to Sheffield Wednesday being another plate added to his 4 or 5 that are spinning at the wind. And yes, you're right, Kieran. John Textor brings me to today's the day of the CAS decision. And none of us, we all want it out of the way, basically, so we can get on with our lives. But also, it reminds me that, yes, we did. We won the Community Shield yesterday.
Congratulations.
I thank you very much. I imagine Eze or more likely Mateta is probably surfboarding with it now. I half expected some of our younger players to start frisbeeing it around the pitch, but it was a lovely day. And of course, Kieran, the situation for Morecambe, this limbo is almost worse than finding out the club's going under, because we thought the last thing we said to each other 2 weeks ago was, well, by the time we meet again, we'll know what's happening, and we still don't blinking know what's happening. It's just how they can manage to drag this out. It's just, well, it's wrong, and we've seen it. It seems the Punjab Warriors are really keen not to go away because they're issuing press statements on an almost daily basis about discussions. The last one was that they'd arranged a discussion with the owner via a mediator, and the mediator phoned them to say, sorry, the owner's not turning up, for what the Punjab Warriors said were feeble excuses. So this not knowing for Morecambe fans is an awful situation, Kieran. So what's the latest?
Yes, I think there is genuine concern that we will not see Morecambe FC play football again. Right. And I don't want to sound sort of too melodramatic there, but the club has been suspended from the National League. I looked at the list of fixtures yesterday, and it just said postponed. Yeah. As is the want of the people that put together the tables and so on. But it's not fair on the other clubs in the National League to have this limbo, and it's certainly not fair on Morecambe. Yeah. So it looks like we now have a hard deadline of the 20th of August, and if there has been no progress in terms of Jason Whittingham, the players are willing to play because what else are they going to do? And certainly, again, similar to Sheffield Wednesday, players have left because their first obligations towards their families, paying the rent and so on, as it is for all of us. So there's not much of a squad left. Remember, Morecambe was a League One club only, 2 or 3 years ago. So it is quite a steep decline that they've had. People are effectively there out of affection and love for the club. It's been there for over a century. And again, we talk about clubs going out of business. It's the same reason again and again and again. It's the owner.
Yeah.
Whether that's Ken Anderson at Bolton, whether it's Di Younger at Reading, whether it's Mel Morris at Derby, what we now have is Dejan Chansiri and Jason Whittingham. Jason Whittingham, a deal was agreed to sell the club to Punjab Warriors. From what I understand, at the time, they were still a member of the EFL, and the owners and directors test had been passed, which gives us some consolation. Because my look at Punjab Warriors backgrounds that's not looking great to me, but the EFL have done far more work than I can. And then for some reason, A, he's stopped communication with them, and B, he seems to have stopped communication with the outside world.
Yeah.
And people get in contact with me about doing this, that, and the other. I've got his phone number, I've got his address. I'm quite happy to pop down and sort of say, we'll act as intermediaries if you have to.
Yeah.
We just want the football club to, and it's a rich person's plaything. Having seen his house, he's not a poor man, that's for sure. So there's still the opportunity to do the right thing.
Just on a practical level, Kieran, if it's a 23-team National League rather than the 24, does that mean one team fewer will be relegated?
Yes. So we'd end up in a similar position to that of Bury Football Club when it was expelled by the EFL. And when it comes to making that decision, it does mean that the people making that decision, and one would hope that they would do the honourable thing and do whatever they do for the right reasons, is that there's an element of self-interest. When the other EFL clubs in League Two voted to expel Bury Football Club, some of those clubs were thinking, well, that just reduces by 50% our chances of being demoted into the National League. The financial benefits between the National League and National League North are significantly lower than those of the EFL and the National League, but there is an element of self-interest in decision-making as always.
Questions time, Kieran. And our first two questions are roads we have passed down before, but I'm always happy to clarify these because they're two things that anecdotally really are high in the top 10 of things that our listeners, I wouldn't say worry about, Kieran, but ask about certainly. And the first one is player insurance. And Neil Fisher has this question. And he says, does a club insure players individually or do they have general cover for all players at once? And if it is individual, would the underwriter look at a player's injury history, etc., to determine the risk? And the final part, if a player's worth 50 million when bought, does the insurer amortise the value over the length of the contract? i.e., or e.g., rather, is the risk 50 million when bought, 40 million after year one, 30 million year two, etc.? Now, I do know from, I wouldn't glorify it with the word research, but just talking to people occasionally in the past at football clubs, insurance companies, certainly the bigger, more responsible ones, will look at a club's fitness regime. They'll look at their physiotherapists. They'll look at the standard of equipment they have in the gyms and the treatment room, etc. So I presume they would look at an individual player's history as well, Kieran, would they? Yes, everything is taken into consideration. And the reason why there's not a blanket policy is exactly the same reason if I was a property insurer. If I've got 6 properties, you look at the state of play in relation to each of them. Do they have any existing issues? Are they close to a
a landslip area? Are they close to the coast? I mean, coastal erosion. All of these things are taken into, and especially when we're looking at Premier League, you're talking about assets which realistically are probably going to be worth millions, tens of millions, if not 100 million. So therefore, it is assessed on a person-by-person basis. Having said that, the insurance policy premiums themselves tend to be very high, and therefore some clubs choose not to insure. They effectively say, we'll take on that risk. Because if you've got a squad, if you take a look at Chelsea's squad, for example, if you add the cost of all of the players in that squad together they've bought, it comes now to around about £1.6 billion. Now, an insurance policy, you say, right, okay, we'll charge you 10% of the value of the squad, £160 million. Chelsea go, well, actually, what are the chances of us losing players due to a career-ending injury and so on? And they might therefore say, we'll take that risk ourselves. And so some clubs do use insurance policies, some clubs don't. There is sort of an overall Premier League policy, but I think that only pays out around about £2.5 to £3 million. I say only, it's still a lot of money, but compared to a transfer fee, it's relatively low. So certainly the underwriters would deal with this on a case-by-case basis because we are looking at high-value assets. As far as if a player's worth 50 million when bought, does it amortise the value over the contract? No, they wouldn't. And the reason why I say that is that accountants and reality, as we've established, I think, on this show, have nothing to do with each other. Because accountants look at book value and they don't look at market value. So if you sign a player, how much? You think about when Palace signed Michael Olise. How much did it cost them from? Was it Reading? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
So a player might have cost you 10 million on a 4-year contract. Well, but his market value is going up. So market value and book value, there's often a disconnect. So that would not be a factor. In fact, it might even work the other way, is that it will be an annual policy, and it could be that the club says, well, we've now got 2 independent witnesses who says that the player's worth 40 million that we signed for 5 million a year ago. We now want to insure them for 40 million, and the underwriter will say, right, well, if that's the case, this is going to be the cost of the policy to you. So that's the way that it would work.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
This episode is sponsored by Shopify. When we started The Price of Football and things started to take off, it all got a bit overwhelming at times as we were suddenly sorting out recordings, interviews, live shows, and our online store. When you're starting off with something new, it seems like your to-do list keeps growing every day with new tasks, and that list can easily begin to overrun your life. Finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything can be such a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify.
Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. With Shopify, you get your own design studio that includes hundreds of ready-to-use templates. You can accelerate your content creation with Shopify's AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. And you can easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify.
Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for a £1 per month trial period at shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball, all lowercase. So go to shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball. Obviously, the world of insurance, Kieran, is as baffling to me as the world of accountancy. I like it when you say accountants are out of touch with reality, because most of the accountants we meet when we do our live shows are very much in touch with it. Really, you're the only one who's out there, Kieran. You're the only wacky accountant. All the rest seem to live up to their cliches of every sitcom accountant there ever is. But it does seem a strange situation that if for example, one of the ticket staff at Chelsea has an accident, there'll be an insurance policy to cover that, but not if Cole Palmer slips on a banana skin at Stamford Bridge.
Well, I mean, the club will have personal liability insurance for all members of staff. So if they have an accident at work, and I was also looking at the Premier League handbook this morning, and it did say that a club can terminate a contract if a player is unable to play, and in theory, that they might be on the hook for only 12 months worth of salary. So you could have a player on a 7 or 8 year deal. But then some clubs are they're not daft. Football players talk to football players. And if there is Club X that has a reputation for strict application of the rules, whereas other clubs will say, look, especially if you got injured playing football, we will carry on paying you for the remainder of your contract and so on. I would advise people to take a look at the Premier League handbook, not just for the kits, which is where of course I start off. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff there.
I hesitate to ask this, Kieran, but was it the kits you were looking at this morning? Why were you looking at the Premier League handbook on a bright, sunny Monday morning? Because
I was looking for the insurance policies.
Oh, you were? Oh, okay, fine.
So,
and
I got distracted by the kits.
Yeah, of course, you came for the insurance, you stayed for the kits. I get it. And Conor Bradley takes us to our second question, and probably our second biggest obsession from our listeners, and that's agents. Conor Bradley says, please put me out of my misery and give me and a few other dummies out there a dummy's guide as to how agents' fees are paid and by who, players or clubs, and do they have any impact on PSR calculations?
Well, I'll do my traditional, I'll answer the second question first. It is an allowable expense, agent fees. Now, sometimes the agent fees, if a club is signing a player, the amount that is capitalised is the amount which is paid in compensation to the selling club, plus any other costs incurred when signing the player. So I always go back to the classic case of Paul Pogba signing for Manchester United in 2016. And if you take a look at Juventus's accounts, they say we sold him for around about 60 million euro. Take a look at Manchester United, they said, well, we signed him for 80 odd million pounds. The difference was the agent's fee. So here the agent fee effectively gets added to the transfer fee, and it's then amortised over the life of the contract, but it is allowable for PSR purposes. I spoke to one of our secret agents about this, and he initially said, what on earth are you phoning me for? It's August. Do you know how busy I am? And I said, yeah, very sorry. I've promised him a couple of spreadsheets as compensation. But our secret agents are absolutely wonderful. He said 99% of the cases, the fees are either paid by the clubs directly, or there's some sort of split. Now, what will happen is that HMRC say that if you are acting on behalf of the player and the club pays the fees, then that's a benefit in kind. It's a bit like getting a company car. It's a bit like getting health insurance if you're working. So the player may have to have some form of tax responsibility for this. There are complications in terms of VAT. And as the agent said to me, some clubs will insist on the players paying their bit. But if that's the case, I just factor that into what I'm prepared to ask for on behalf of my client. So, the player is expecting this is going to be my net salary each month. The club is saying, I'm willing to pay this. There are complications when it comes to VAT and so on. And what was also interesting when I was talking to our secret agent, he said that sometimes he will be acting on behalf of the selling club, and the player won't even know that he's being touted around. So the selling club will get in contact with the agent, say, look, we need to move on, left back C or right winger X or whatever it's going to be. The agent will then go, well, actually, I've got contacts, and it's all about networking. It's all about knowing other people as well. And there are now some very interesting events taking place, and we're trying to get them on the show, whereby there's an organisation, I've forgotten its name offhand, where it gets representatives from clubs. It's a bit like speed dating. You get everybody in the room together.
Yeah.
And they say, and especially if you take a look at Premier League clubs, you think about the position of Palace and Brighton and all these other clubs, they will have half a dozen players each season who they're looking to get out on loan. And this sort of, they have this matchmaking service now set up, but sometimes it will be left to the agents. And as the agent said to me, the players a lot of the time don't know about it, and then they find themselves, they're getting transferred to another club, and they think it's because the other club's come in for them. They go to sign the contract, and they look down the contract and say, "Why is the name of this agent on it?" And then the buying club says, well, your former club was trying to get rid of you, and the player won't have known.
Right.
So it is absolutely intriguing. It is a bit of a minefield. There is a book called The Secret Agent, which I'd recommend. We don't know who's written it because it's secret by definition. But there's an awful lot that does take place. Are agents' fees significant? Yes, they are. But you work in the entertainment industry. Everybody's got an agent. I think about the most important things I've ever bought and sold, which is tend to be property. Well, how did I do that? I did that through an agent. So I've never quite understood the hostility towards agents. And I think, again, this is very much sort of a media driven. We're always looking for scapegoats as far as football is concerned. And Eric Hall, who had big pluses and big minuses, became a very easy target for everything that is wrong with football. As I've often said, when I talk to executives at clubs, they say the good agents do an absolutely brilliant job for both the player and the club.
See, the thing is, Kieran, you say networking, other people would say tapping up, essentially, which as we know, is not allowed. What interests me, Kieran, is that in the meantime, the relationship between the player and the agent. If a Premier League player is getting £100,000 a week in wages, is £15,000 of that going to the agent? So if a player, for example, as well, is media right negotiations, if he's asked to do Graham Norton, the agent presumably will be taking his fee for that as well?
Yes, because who negotiated that on behalf of the player? And what agencies will now do, especially for players who are very high profile, they will say, okay, we're going to give you a menu. We can offer you a Class A service, a Class B service, a Class C service, a Class D service, and so on. And we will arrange all your tax affairs. We will do this. And as one agent said to me, people think that all I do is negotiate contracts. I don't. I look after this.
Yeah.
Why is this player never mentioned in the press?
Yeah.
Right, okay, that's down to me. Yeah. And we're not criticising, we're not saying they're angels, we're not saying that they're not angels or whatever. But, sometimes the agent's job is to be that of a reputational management party, shall we say, as well as the traditional perspective of an agent.
I feel quite sorry for our secret agent, Kieran, when his phone goes in the middle of August, number unknown. God, great, this will be Man United. They followed it. Oh, it's Maguire. Alistair Lance has our next question, Kieran. Alistair says, you've talked about the end of June deadline being important for loss-making clubs to sell players and infrastructure assets to meet profit and sustainability rules. In the case of profit-making clubs, would it be worth them using this opportunity to purchase infrastructure assets, brackets like surrounding hotels, to allow them the flexibility to sell them if ever 1 year in the future they became close to their PSR limit? I think this is a really interesting question, Kieran.
I think this is absolutely cracker, Alistair. We're not a cynical show, and we've been at pains to express that. But given what we have seen happen at Chelsea, which was the most high-profile one, but it also has to be remembered. It's also happened at Birmingham City. It's happened at Aston Villa. It's happened at Reading, Sheffield Wednesday. It's happened at many clubs. Selling off real estate assets, which is now banned for PSR purposes in the EFL, but it's still allowable under the Premier League. You can see the benefits in taking that approach. It has to be said, to give the Premier League some defence here, that you can't just go and buy a hotel in another city and say that's part of your club. It's got to be effectively within sort of the footprint of the club. So for Chelsea, if anybody's ever been there, that hotel is part of Stamford Bridge, sort of part of the ecosphere there. So yes, you can do that. Is it worth you doing that so you can effectively have a potential profit at a future point in time? Yes, and it shows more and more that football clubs are moving away from being purely football into a broader part of the entertainment industry, of the hospitality industry, and so on.
Our next question, Kieran, comes from Clinton Hatt. It's a cracking name.
Yes.
And also gives me the opportunity to say that there's one big difference between the FA Cup and the Community Shield, is that the FA Cup is handed to you by Prince William and the Community Shield is handed to you by Clinton Morrison. It was worth the look on Palace. Apparently, somebody dropped out. He would at short notice, so they got Clinton Morrison. And as some friends of mine said, if Clinton hadn't been there, it might have ended up with me being the one to. Are you doing anything? No, I'm fine. But it's just, I don't know who was more bemused, Mark Gahey or Clinton Morrison. Clinton, you got it the wrong way up. I love Clinton Morrison. Clinton Hatt's question is an interesting one. My question, it says Clinton, is about club share prices compared to the wider market. Has any listed club share price outperformed the market over the last 3 years?
Right. If we take a look at the Dow Jones Index, which has increased by around about a third over the last 3 years, I'm going to give you three clubs. For the sake of transparency, I own shares in two of these. So I'm not saying that these are good deals or bad deals. I'm just saying that I buy shares in football clubs because it gives me slightly more information on occasions. I'm going to give you three examples. The first of which is Ajax of Amsterdam. Over the course of the last 3 years, the share price has fallen significantly. It was €14 in 2022. It's currently around about 10. I think that reflects that Ajax have not been at the stellar levels that one would traditionally associate them with. And markets which are forward-looking, probably saying to themselves, where do we expect Ajax to generate money from over the course of the next few years? And it's not very positive. The second one, and I will be perfectly honest here, I often get accused by Celtic fans of being pro Glasgow Rangers, which I'm not. The thing is, I'm not pro either club. I try to be completely neutral with regards to this. Well, I do own shares in Celtic, and in the past 3 years, the share price has increased by around about 65%. They've gone from 110 pence to 180 pence. So that's outperformed the Dow Jones. Why is that? And I often tell people, if you want, people quite often contact me on LinkedIn, or I'll get random messages. I want your job. I want to be a football finance analyst. I can add up numbers, and to which my standard answer is, everybody can add up numbers. This is the problem. And they said, well, the share price has gone up from 110 to 180, for example. Yeah, I said, well, I know that. And I say, well, at what age did you learn that 180 is bigger than 110? And I go, well, probably about 3 or 4. So I said, well, if you just tell me that, you're giving me information which is value to a 3 or 4 year old. So who's going to pay you? Who's going to pay me to be a consultant?
Yeah.
They pay you for the whys. They don't pay you for the whats. So why has Celtic's share price increased so much? Well, it is the belief that a club like Celtic, given the Scottish coefficient, has probably, and again, this isn't a slight at Rangers, and I see that Paddy Power are already paying out on Celtic to have won the Scottish Premiership, given the odds that they were on at the start of the season. It's, again, classic Paddy Power, very, very clever press release. The money from Scottish football comes from participation in the Champions League. The move to the Swiss-style model is significantly beneficial to Celtic. The number of increased fixtures it certainly helps them, the increased money there. So that's why we've seen this 60% increase in value. The other club is Manchester United. Now, Manchester United is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And again, I went on an investor show a few years ago, and they said at the time, would you invest in Manchester United? And I said, well, on the basis of the core business, possibly not. But at the time, the share price was $11.50. It was below the launch price when Manchester United were listed in, was it 2012? But that share price has gone up from $11.50 to $17.50. So if you got in, as always, it's a case of getting in at the right time. So there's been a good 50% increase, outperforming the Dow Jones in that period. Why is that? Well, part of the reason for that, looking at the why factors, looking at the because factors, is due to the partial acquisition by Jim Ratcliffe. Is he going to put in a bid for everything at some point in future, in which case he's got to go and probably pay $32 a share. So that's factored into the share price. The not qualifying for Europe this year, that was factored in months and months ago. And so on. So Manchester United has outperformed, but that's partly due, in my view, to its potential acquisition by either Ratcliffe or another party over the course of the next few years, because it's, as Ratcliffe said himself this weekend, it's one of the biggest brands in football. It's one of the biggest brands in sport. Yeah. And people want that brand awareness, and they want that brand association.
This is your before and after story, where your first steps towards a new life-changing career begin. Southeastern College can take you there. We offer in-demand hybrid and online programs with hands-on training, led by in-field career professionals, and career services to put you on the path to a rewarding and fulfilling future. This is where your transformation begins. Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit sec.edu to get started.
All I will say, Kieran, is you need to be really careful, Celtic and Rangers, because when you say, I'm not pro either of them, you just firmly convince them both that you're anti both of them.
Yes.
You're just making life more difficult for yourself there, Kieran. Richard Boast. There's so many things you could do with that name, especially the first name. But Richard I'm sure there's a character.
I'm sure he's got a lifetime of it.
I'm sorry, I apologise, Richard. That's childish. It's like the early days of the pod, Kieran. We didn't really know what we were doing, so we laughed at some names. It's a great name, Richard. He has our last question. Richard says, I firmly believe the atmosphere at games is created by the away fans. With this in mind, I'd love to see a rule giving away fans up to 20% of the tickets, subject to being able to sell them, of course. My questions are, do the away club benefit financially from selling away tickets? And given my suggestion above, would there be much of a financial implication either way for the home club? It's a good question, Kieran. We have discussed in the past that the owners of some smaller clubs would happily give bigger clubs when they visit them, like Leeds, many more away tickets, but at the risk of alienating their own fans, because they know they will sell. If Leeds want 5,000 away tickets when Leeds are in the Championship, or if Derby, when they're in League One, want 3,000 away tickets, then they'll sell them and arguably have more away fans than home fans. But
yes, and just going back to talking about Rangers and Celtic, this is very much an issue for those clubs who are hosting the two big clubs from Glasgow as far as the Scottish Premiership is concerned. And I've seen both sides of the argument, and there is a business benefit, and then there's hold on, I didn't have to move seats when we were at home to Arbroath.
Yeah.
Why do I have to go and move seats just because we've now got? And so you can understand it from the fans' perspective as well. As far as giving fans up to 20% of the tickets, look, the issue that you will have in the Premier League is that the Premier League has renewed, and a big hats off and congratulations to the FSA. They've kept the Premier League to the £30 pricing point. That does make a difference as far as the atmosphere is concerned. And again, I go back. People have forgotten all about COVID, alarmingly.
Yeah.
Football during COVID in those empty stadiums was terrible.
Yeah.
It was like watching a training exercise. Yeah. And what away fans bring, I think, is absolutely fantastic. The trouble is, if that was to be the case, and it was going to be up to 20%, then the pressure from club owners to scrap the £30 rule, I think, would be overwhelming. We have seen significant increases in ticket prices as far as 25-26 is concerned. I think it's probably 17 or 18 clubs have increased prices. What we are also seeing is not just prices being increased, but the number of price points within individual stadiums are being increased. It used to be one price for the North Stand, one for the South Stand, and so on. Well, clubs are effectively taking a similar approach to that, what we have seen in the airline industry. You've now got economy, but they've invented something called premium economy. You've got business and you've got first class if you're doing transatlantic and so on. And what they realise is the more price points you have, the more money you will make overall. So I can understand that, but what happens if? And I'm not criticising. I love a trip to Turf Moor. If Brighton are playing at Burnley, if Palace are playing at Burnley, are you going to sell 20%? For clubs of our stature, etc. And we know where we are. We know the size of our fan base for away matches and home matches and so on. When Burnley would then say, well, actually, we ideally we could have sold some of those as season tickets, but if we now have to hold back 20%, yes, we know that when Manchester United or Chelsea or Manchester City or Liverpool come to town, they'll all sell out, but they won't, and it becomes more difficult for them to then sell the walk-up tickets, because look at it through the eyes of a Burnley fan. Why would I want to go and see Brighton or Palace or Bournemouth at home and pay top dollar for them? So it is an issue. I think they've broadly got it reasonably right. Again, fair play to the Premier League. Kudos where it's 10%. It's the higher of, it's the lower of 10% or 3,000. So I'm going to Bournemouth in a few weeks, so we only get 1,100 tickets, and that's fair. We shouldn't have 3,000. It's not fair on the Bournemouth fans. So I absolutely understand where it comes from. As far as the question, do the away club benefit financially from selling away tickets? They just about cover their costs. They get a little bit of a commission on each ticket which is sold, but by the time they've set up their ITs, they set up their app to deal with that, to deal with telephone inquiries, to post out the tickets if they are going to be paper tickets instead of digital. The admin costs probably outweigh the financial benefits from the commission that they get. So there's not much. My understanding from senior sources was that there was quite a bit of pushback from some of the clubs in the Premier League to maintaining the £30 price point, but they managed to get it through. Now, for how long that will continue, I'm not sure. There are some owners, and this isn't having a go at American. The American owners don't understand it.
Yeah.
They go, those are tickets which we could be selling for 70 quid. Why are we selling them for 30? And you do the sums, 3,000 times £40. That's 120 grand. You multiply that by 19, ka-ching. And it is a significant amount of money.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who's joined the Price of Football Club. If you'd like to join the club too and get every episode a day earlier than everyone else, ad-free listening and invite to our monthly Q&A sessions, bonus episodes and more, go to our website, priceoffootball.com. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on X, Twitter, you can find us on YouTube, and if you'd like to buy one of our books or even a Price of Football t-shirt, you can find all the details on that very same website, priceoffootball.com. We'll be back on, what day is it, Kieran? Tuesday? We'll be back on Thursday.
Yes.
And on Friday, we have an interview with the owner of West Bromwich Albion.
That's right.
Which we're very much looking forward to doing this afternoon. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, as always, thanks for all the support that you've given. I know we've had a little bit of a mini break. Where we have been keeping ourselves occupied. I can assure you the Price of Football WhatsApp account has not stopped. There's various rumours and scurrilous topics have been in part of discussion. Thank you everybody from the club as well. It is very much appreciated. But there's another way that you can support the club. And that's to get on your apps and to give us a review. We had around about 2,500, which is very, very kind of you. It does help as far as Apple and Spotify are concerned in terms of the ratings, in terms of algorithms and so on. So please, if you could do that, give up 30 seconds. It doesn't matter what you say. You could even say you would rather have the show presented by Dejan Chansiri, Jason Whittingham and David Mitchell, because when he asks, are we the baddies, they've got to say yes.
That's a good one. I'll have a word with one of them. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The Price of Football. The Price of Football.